The next 5 players to commit to Ohio State football. Let's talk about it. Ohio State is currently wrapping up their final recruiting visit weekend right before the dead period happens. So naturally, we're going to talk about the guys that we think are going to come committing, whether it's out of this weekend or maybe they visited weeks before and we feel good about it and they're just finishing up their visits and it feels like, Ohio State's the one. There's some people who have commitment dates set. There's also some people that they don't have a commitment date set, but we think coming up here soon, they're most likely going to commit. Right now on campus, you have guys that are like the surefire guys. You know what's going to happen. You know these guys are going to be Buckeyes. They're basically even just recruiting this weekend. You also have the guys where it's like, yeah, we feel pretty good about them. We want to make sure that it's going to happen, but at the end of the day, it should happen. And then you have like the big fish out there. We're talking the 5-stars, the Malik Autreys, the David Sanders Jr., where it's like, hey, we feel good about they're on campus. We feel good things are happening, but the staff has to close on these guys. So we'll figure those guys out here soon. Obviously, those guys are going to be committing at some point, but do I think there'll be some of the ones that are the next 5 to commit? Let's talk about those 5. All right, so my first one that I think is going to commit, Jake Cook out of Westerville, North Ohio. 3-star center, 4-star on Rivals, so he does have his 4th-star on one platform there. But guys, he decommitted from Louisville, was a commit to Louisville in I think February, and that was always seemed like where he wanted to go, unless he got that Ohio State offer. Well, turns out he got the Ohio State offer. He sat on it a little bit, didn't really announce it, didn't really want to say anything. Then he decommits from Louisville. Then the next day, he announces an offer to Ohio State. At this point, it just kind of feels like Ohio State, they need a center in this class. They need some offensive line help on the interior. Jake Cook has become that dude. I think everybody's heard about his story at this point, and if you haven't heard about it yet, go check out. I made a video on it before. Go check that one out. But at the end of the day, the question is less about, is Jake Cook going to be in this class? And the question is more, what does Jake Cook do to this class? What does Jake Cook do to this offensive line class? Because about a month ago, we were all convinced it'd be Andrew Stargell. We were all convinced Javen McFadden would be in this class. Well, Javen McFadden, I think, is given a little bit more of a threat to Colorado than maybe we first thought before. He's best friends with Jordan Seaton, who went there last year, and Andrew Stargell was also a center target for Ohio State, who decided to go on and take the rest of his visits. Does Ohio State take both Andrew Stargell and Jake Cook? Who knows? We'll see. Jake Cook or Andrew Stargell, Jake Cook. Andrew Stargell has a commitment date set for, I believe, July 4th. Yeah, because Justin Hill is July 3rd. He has his set for July 4th. So at the end of the day, I think that we'll figure out more as the weeks come on and if we hear any more chatter and stuff like that. But it's going to be very interesting to see if Jake Cook does affect the rest of the class at all in that area. All right, next one is Brody Linen, tight end out of Ohio as well. Gilmore Academy out of Gates Mill, Ohio. He swapped his official visit this weekend from Penn State to Ohio State once he got that Ohio State offer. Ohio State wants 2 tight ends in this class, and quite frankly, there are only 2 tight ends that they have offers out for right now that are not committed anywhere, and those tight ends are Brody Linen and Landon Pace. And so at the end of the day, Landon Pace from St. Louis, he's not as highly rated as Brody Linen, but could still possibly be in the class because of that lineage and things like that. But I think Brody Linen is the guy that Keenan Bailey has really set his sights in on, really wants him to be the second tight end of this class, and really wants to bring him in for that. I honestly, at this point, I can't see Brody Linen going anywhere else. I know On3 has him right here, going to Kentucky. I think maybe that was the case before, but this recruiting prediction machine that On3 puts together, it doesn't really account for lifelong Ohio State fan in a late offer where he's swapping a visit coming in. So Brody Linen, I'm like 99% certain he's going to be a Buckeye. So that's going to happen eventually. I do think they'll let Jake Cook respond first. I do think he's going to be the one that commits first, but I think shortly after that, most likely sometime next week, you'll hear something from Brody Linen as well. All right, so let's get into some more of the kind of questionable guys. This is where it gets a little bit more difficult, I think. Tran ODM from Weddington Matthews. That's not Ohio, North Carolina. Um, he's a 3-star on 24/7. He's a 4-star on On3. On3 is very high on him, but at the end of the day, like, this is still a prospect that I believe it seems like Larry Johnson very much wants in this class. This is one of those guys that you don't want to look at the star ranking. You want to look at the attention that it seems like Larry Johnson has been giving him, and based on the attention it seems like Larry Johnson's been giving him, seems like Larry Johnson very much so wants him in this class. Now, it does kind of feel like it's at this point, it's kind of between Ohio State and Oregon. I know On3 has UCLA up there higher. The talks seem to be much more around Ohio State versus Oregon and which one of them is going to be able to pull Trajan Odom over to there. But I think at the end of the day, if Larry wants to take him, I think he's a Buckeye. Now, his decision date is set for June 28th. So if he's going to be a Buckeye, Larry's going to need to make that decision. I do wonder if maybe that decision date could possibly impact things, because right now Larry Johnson has his hand in the cookie jar. He is going after so many different guys. I mean, Damian Shaklin, Malik Autry, Zion Grady, Maxwell Roy, Marion Dye, just a few, and that's not even including Jakeem Stewart, who, let's be honest, he's going to reclassify to 2025. It's no longer a question of if it will happen, it's when will it happen. When will he finally make that reclassification actually happen? And at the end of the day, like, we just don't know what's going to happen with Zahir Mathis. Zahir Mathis is visiting Penn State this weekend. We haven't heard a lot about him. We haven't heard him be super involved in the process. He didn't come for an official visit in the summertime. He does want to come back to Ohio State for an official visit during the season. I think it was Berm that said that. So obviously, like, this isn't like, hey, expect Zahir Mathis to decommit or anything like that. But it's just one of those guys you don't really hear a lot about, and you're kind of like, what's going on? And then you see Larry's activity going after all these other guys. I mean, I just named a big long list for you. Some of that could be him trying to compensate for a little bit of a smaller class last year. But at the end of the day, like, I think Larry Johnson really wants Trajan Odom. And like I said, if Larry Johnson wants him, I think Larry Johnson gets him. I think Trajan Odom will not want to go all the way across the country to Oregon. Ohio State obviously is not in his state, but it is close enough that I feel like it is a good distance, and he will want to be at Ohio State working with Larry Johnson, guy he has a great relationship with. All right, fourth one, Jordan Davidson. I think Jordan Davidson will be a Buckeye. He does not have a commitment date set right now, but I feel like Jordan Davidson is wrapping up exactly what he wants to do. I think that Jordan Davidson was trying to figure some things out. I think, like, obviously 3 months ago, it seemed like Jordan Davidson was going to be an Ohio State lock. It seemed like that was easy to happen. And then things changed, right? You had the running back coach change, which didn't end up being a bad thing because he already had a great relationship with Coach Lachlan. And then you had the 3 running back class come into play because Dallin Hayden decided to transfer, and then Ohio State was like, well, we better take 3 running backs this class instead of just 2. And so now there's some conversation about that. And then I forget who said it. Somebody read a quote from the family that said something about, like, we have something in mind, they have something in mind. I forget who said it. I apologize. It was either Berm or Juck, maybe. But they were thinking, hey, maybe there's some NIL involved here. They didn't report that. They were just kind of speculating a little bit. And did Jordan Davidson, when he went to Oregon, did he get offered some kind of bag or something like that that was a larger deal than what Ohio State was offering? I can't imagine the bag is that much better. I mean, this is a running back, right? Running backs don't make the most in the world in the NFL, nor do they make the most in the world in recruiting. So, I mean, it's possible that a team like Oregon just completely overvalues Jordan Davidson. I'm not trying to be mean when I'm saying that. It's not because of him. It's just because of the position. Maybe they are valuing him way, way more than Ohio State. And just because they value him more than Ohio State doesn't mean they're overvaluing him. I shouldn't have said that. That's not the right verbiage to use there. But they're just valuing financially Jordan Davidson more than Ohio State. It's possible that could happen, but I don't think that value is so much higher that Ohio State won't be willing to meet it. We hear that Ohio State does have a backup plan with Anthony Turbo Rogers. However, Anthony Turbo Rogers is committed to Alabama still. So you know, is that really a backup plan if he's committed elsewhere? Does Carlos Loughlin know something we don't know? Who knows? I think at the end of the day, I don't think they're going to need the backup plan. I think that Jordan Davison coming to campus shows that he's not concerned about the three running back class. I think Jordan Davison has a lot of confidence in himself, that he's not concerned with a Bo Jackson. He's not concerned with an Isaiah West. And I think what Ohio State does this season is going to be super important for the running back recruiting, because they're going to display to people that you can have a 2 to 3 man running back room get a good amount of carries. And I think that a lot of kids are seeing nowadays that you don't want to walk into a room where you're the bell cow back. That's what Quinshawn Judkins had at Ole Miss. He was the bell cow back. He got all the carries. And look what he did. He said, enough of this. I got to go someplace where I'm conserving myself a little bit, because at the end of the day, I need to make the money in the NFL, and I need to conserve my body so that I can make those things happen there. And he's only in his third year, right? He had so many carries his first 2 years that he's saying, I need to conserve myself a little bit more. And I think that most running backs are getting hip to that idea, that you kind of need a 1-2 punch, maybe even a 3-man punch out there. And if you display your abilities well enough, you're going to get noticed, and you're going to make it to the league. They're going to draft you, and they're going to feel good about you. And I think that all of those things seem to be lining up for Jordan Davison. Like I said, NIL, that's always a possibility. We'll see what happens, but at the end of the day, I I just don't think there's a price out there, unless it's just astronomical, that Ohio State won't pay for Jordan Davison. All right, final guy, Justin Hill. Listen, Justin Hill has his decision date set for July 3rd. 4-star, top 50 guy in 24/7, all these other places. I mean, he's highly rated 4-star guy. He was back on campus for 7-on-7 on Tuesday, June 18th. So he was back there. He's going to Oregon this weekend. So we'll see what happens. You know, maybe something Oregon does really changes the way he's thinking. I don't know. Like when you listen to interviews with Justin Hill, he has three top decision makers for himself: trust with staff, development, and home vibes. Those are his three main things that he's deciding with. You tell me which one of those three things Ohio State doesn't meet. Ohio State gets you to the league. Ohio State sent the entire defensive staff to his high school to meet him. Ryan Day has been super involved in this recruitment, and it doesn't get much more home vibes than the school right down the street from you, right? I mean, this isn't a kid who's talking about, I want to spread my wings and go make my own path and go do my own thing. This is somebody that wants the home vibes. When he was talking about going to Oregon this weekend, he was talking about, yeah, I want to feel the home vibes there. I want to feel like it's not that far away. I want to feel like it's, and I'm not directly quoting him here, but that's kind of the way it sounded for me in the conversation he had with Bill Kurlick with 24/7. But at the end of the day, I think when Ryan Day really wants someone, Ryan Day gets that someone. How many guys, Paris Johnson, Quinshawn Judkins, has Ryan Day just zeroed in on and said, I'm going to get that guy, and boom, he lands him. I was one of the first people to throw out there Quinshawn Judkins to Ohio State when he entered the transfer portal. I had so many people in my mentions. No way, he's not coming. It's not happening. Travion Henderson is going to be here. He won't want to work with him. I heard that it was looking that way. I heard that Ryan Day wanted him, and Ryan Day was going to go after him. And guys, Ryan Day doesn't seem like the closer that maybe Urban Meyer seems like, but Ryan Day is a closer on the recruiting trail. Ryan Day has a sense about him, a professionalism about him, where he's not just a closer with the kids, but he's a closer with the families as well. And there is a very intriguing, interesting, comforting, whatever you want to call it, aspect to him that I think he gives off that is very appealing to these kids and to their families. And so at the end of the day, staying home versus Oregon, Alabama, and USC, I think it's a done deal. I think Justin Hill's coming to Ohio State. I think that jack position that they've been talking about is going to be put on display this season, and I think that they are offering him a very sweet deal with being the guy who can play that jack position, saying we can throw it in with some of these other guys, but man, we want you to be the guy who is going to be perfect for that position and make it happen. Quite frankly, Ohio State, they just meet all the criteria. And I think on July 3rd, Justin Hill will be a Buckeye. He said something about he's going to tell all the staff on July 2nd. I don't know how that works with a dead period or anything like that, but at the end of the day, expect July 3rd, Justin Hill to be a Buckeye. Hopefully at that time, we also have Jordan Davidson, Tran ODM, Jake Cook, and Brody Linen as well. So let me know what you think. You think any of these guys aren't coming? You think anybody else could commit before some of these guys? You agree with me? Jordan Davidson doesn't have his commitment date set, but he's probably going to commit within a couple weeks. Do you think David Sanders maybe commits before then? Do you think he's coming to Ohio State? Let me know what you think. I'd love to hear you all's thoughts as well in the comment section. Love chopping up with you guys after videos and hearing what you think as well. Thank you so much for watching. Do appreciate it. Like and subscribe. Always appreciate that. And have a good one, everybody.